Done. And let's begin. All right, so welcome everyone for joining, and to all of you who are viewing this as a recording. This is a session on as part of a training series that Investible are doing for you guys, and this is in collaboration with my company, which is Simple Creative Marketing. I'm the director. I'll ask you that you mute your lines if you're just watching this, so we don't get additional noise coming through. And if you have any questions, just put that in the chat and we'll be able to see it there. So this is a series of 4 different workshops, 1-hour sessions we're going to run, which will cover different elements of digital or online marketing for your various startups and projects that you guys are working on. Okay, and let's just start here, right? So just a bit of a background, I guess, of who I am and my business. Essentially, we do marketing for growth startups, and we really focus on simplifying that because there is a lot out there. We do multiple things like marketing strategy. We do outsourced marketing management, which basically means that we run the marketing for different businesses. We also do. We have a team who produces content and they sort of write blog posts and articles and that kind of thing essentially for business owners who are stretched with time. What you're seeing on the screen here is just an example of some of the work we do. One of my clients needed some help with really growing their brand online, and we did some work around LinkedIn for him. And last month we were able to sort of get, it says 54,000 views there, but we were able to do a couple of content pieces that got collectively 90,000 views over a number of weeks. So that's the kind of work that we do. Okay, so a bit about sort of my credentials, I suppose. So I'm running Simple Creative Marketing. We've been in business for about 12 months. Prior to that, I was a national marketing and partnerships manager for a co-working space in Sydney. Well, they're in Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide, called Hub Australia. So we ran all the marketing campaigns there, and the goal was to grow the membership base for that organization. Okay, I also founded a social impact project, which was in Laos in 2011. I was born in Laos, and I had the fortune of living over there in 2010, 2011, and that was all about really bringing design thinking into the schooling system and working with kids and helping them to, I guess, understand the relevance or bring relevance back to school. Okay, because problem was there were a lot of kids falling asleep in class, and we were tasked to try and work out, okay, how can we marry being at school with actually making that relevant for the students, right? And so that was a project that we worked on. Okay, and then I've presented at TEDx Telstra in Sydney. I also blog frequently for Huffington Post, which is a major blog in North America. Okay, so want to give you a bit of a quick warning. I guess I'm not your typical instructor. I do things like dress up like zombies once in a while and hit the streets to try and scare people. And this is not your typical workshop. So I want you to have, if you haven't got it already, just pen and paper or something that you can write down some notes, because there's going to be a lot of things that come up in this session, and you'll have some questions, I'm sure of it. So keep your questions there, and I'll open up to a Q&A at the end.
Are you sure about this? It's okay to copy.
Hello.
Thanks so much. There's something else.
Someone just joined, I suppose. Can you mute your line, please?
Hello. Yes. How do I mute it?
Yep, you got it. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And so let's get started. So I'm going to be asking you a bunch of questions throughout this workshop, and I'd love you to just type in your answers in the chat. And the more you engage with me and the questions I ask you, the more you're going to get out of it. Okay, so let's do that. So let's do a quick test. If you can bring up the Zoom chat, this is probably new technology for some of you, but if you can just type in even just where you're from in the chat. I'd love to know where you're located, so that would be a really good thing for us to know. You're in Sydney. Okay, where are you, Greg? We've got We've got my partner in here, Cindy's in Taiwan. Someone's in Adelaide. Greg's in Adelaide, but working in Sydney. Wonderful. Okay. So, Karata in Pilbara, WA. Thank you. Welcome. Love it. All right. So, and we've got Port Lincoln. Amazing. I need to spend more time in Adelaide, South Australia, it looks like. Okay. So, all right, 3 keys to making this really work for you. One, you want to focus. So any distractions, you got your phones on, whatever, put them to silent or turn them off. No Facebook, no anything that's going to ding, does, buzz, whatever, and get your focus away from here. We want you to learn. Secondly, we want you to engage, like I say. So when the questions come up, please type your answers in the chat. You all know how to use the chat now, so that's awesome. And then, and certainly the third thing is to learn and really, look for the relevance in the content that makes sense for you guys and what you can use for your projects. Okay. Awesome. Now here's our journey. We're here right now, 20th September. We're starting with introduction to digital marketing. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to do a session on content marketing essentials, and then we'll do a session on SEO. And then the third session, or the last session, will be about Facebook for business. Okay. So they're the key areas. I guess just a quick poll. Which one of these sessions are you most excited about? If you could just type that in the chat for me, that would be, I'd just love to get an idea of what you're keen to learn. SEO for Janine, fantastic. All of them, all right. So Indie Arts, I'd love to have your name. What's your name? That's what you know, Lise. Okay. SEO, it's Josie. Awesome. Thanks, Josie. All right. Wonderful. So today's objective is really an intro piece, and we'll cover a few things, but what I would love for you guys is to get an understanding of what it means to be online and how you can really benefit from the current trends that are happening. All right. You're going to learn a bit about the different components of digital marketing, and also you'll probably start to map out your online strategy, okay? And this is really what it's all about. And what we'll cover today is, we'll answer the question, what is it? What is it? What's digital marketing anyway? We'll look at 6 key principles of digital marketing to make it work for you. And then I'll cover 4 core elements. There are actually 8, but I'm going to sort of zoom in on the 4 that's going to be particularly relevant to startup and where you are in your journey. Okay, and then we've got the last piece is a few minutes on digital marketing trends, so you can see what's happening out there. All right, so we've already answered this question. If you haven't answered it, just throw it into the chat. What would you like to get out of today's workshop? So actually, we haven't answered this question yet. So what is it, being that this is I guess, what do you want to know about digital marketing? What's the bigger question that you're trying to answer? Or what's the challenge you're trying to solve? Could I just get some responses from you guys in the chat? Let me know, what is it that you'd like to get out of today's workshop? And I'm just going to grab some water. If you can go ahead and just type your answers in the chat. However, my chat's really slow. Okay, how to engage a wider community for commercial purposes? Beautiful. Have a good understanding already, but need to be more active in what I'm doing and get a plan of attack. Thanks, Greg. Funnels and keywords. Okay, thanks, Janine. All right, so looks like you guys have a good a bit of a technical understanding of what we're talking about, so that's fine. We're going to go deeper in the sort of the deeper sessions coming up. So this is more of a broad view, and then we'll go narrow. Okay, so let's go with that. So, and we'll address some of the questions you have as we go along. So digital marketing, really, let's start with what's marketing. And I think sort of I'm going from a base assumption here that everyone is sort of new to this to some degree, and so really it's all about promoting and selling products or services, or it could be a cause or a mission. Okay, particularly if you're working on social impact businesses, which I think you all are to some capacity. All right, and it also includes market research and advertising. So there are different elements to that, and here's another definition. It's about the integrated, so digital marketing then is the integrated services. So it's a range of services and different activities we put together in order to attract, engage, and convert customers online. Okay, so I've highlighted the 3 keywords here: attraction. So to attract, right, to bring people to you. To engage is to actually have a conversation and dialogue with them. All right, build trust and rapport. All right, and then convert is actually to move them to taking an action, right? So whether that's a buying action or that's taking a vote or doing something. All right, so that's 3 key elements, and they're 3 pieces to the equation. All right, and what I tend to find is a lot of people focus on the attract part of it, which is how do I get how do I get a wider audience? How do I attract more clients? How do I get more buyers and these sort of things, which is fine. It's the beginning part of it, but you also need to really focus on the engagement and the conversion in equal measure. Okay, so quick pop quiz for you. Digital marketing, true or false? Is digital marketing is much more than just a website and social media. Just pop your answers in the chat box there. Do you think it's true or false? True. You guys are star students. All right, so I think you've nailed it, right? The answer is true. Okay, it's much more complex, and here's a bit of a preview of what we call 360-degree digital marketing. Now, I mentioned that there are 8 elements to this, and I'm going to show you all of them in a moment, or in a few minutes. But for now, so what we're going to focus on is particularly for you: SEO, website, content, and social. And I'm going to give you definitions for each one of those shortly, okay, in the event that you're not clear on what they are. All right. Okay, so now, underlying what we do online are certain principles, right? So we're going to start with the first principle is, if you're going to be online, you need to be found. All right. I think you all get this. The questions that we're really asking here are where are people searching, right? How are they searching? And do you come up when the results are being displayed on a search engine, whether it's Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever it may be that people are using? In Australia, if your audience is in Australia, Google has market domination. They've got about 95% market share right now. So you definitely need to be found in Google. But if you're international and that's where your audience is, then you need to look at your other search engines as well. I think as a broad strategy, you want to be in all of them, as many as possible anyway, just to cover any scale that you're looking to do. Okay. So first step is be found. Here's an example. All right, so this happened very recently. I was in Surrey Hills, which is in Sydney, for those of you who know the area, and I was looking for, me and my mates were looking for a pizza. So we thought, okay, well, where do we go? What's the best pizza in Surrey Hills? So how do you think? Janine got your question. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So what do you guys think was my first step in trying to find the best pizza in Surrey Hills? What did we do? Google, absolutely. Chucked that, whacked up, pulled out my phone, went into Google search, and just typed in best pizza Surrey Hills. Okay, and then in that came a bunch of results, and I'm sure you're all familiar with what that looks like. And then they were all ranked, by certain factors, all right? And so this is what being found is all about. Now, you could have a situation where the best pizza in Sydney, is in a shop somewhere, in town, but because they didn't appear on that search, search results, right? Myself and anyone else searching for pizza never found it. Okay, so this is why it's important, right? It's about consumer behavior and what people are doing right now. All right, there's an argument there that there are many businesses that don't use digital marketing and they're perfectly fine and they're successful. That's true, right? But more and more, what we're finding is that the trend is, increasingly more people are going online to conduct searches. All right. So, quick check-in: is anyone familiar with the zero moment of truth, or ZMOT? which is on the screen right now? Just give me a yes if you or no. Okay, so essentially, if we go back to 2011, Google, in collaboration with a marketing research firm, did an extensive study to understand people's buying behaviors and specifically consumers across 12 different industries. Okay, and they wanted to understand what was happening online at that point in time and how people were making decisions before they purchased anything. Okay, and that's whether it's online or offline, right? So the zero moment of truth really refers to the research that we do as a consumer or as a potential buyer online before we make a purchase. Okay, the internet has made it much more easier for people to do searches. Okay, and what Google found in this study was that there are 4 stages to a buying journey or a buying experience. All right, and we start with a stimulus, which is on the left here. Okay, and the stimulus is like, think of it as your trigger, right? And it's how we find out about a specific business or an organization, right? Or a product or a service, right? And that could be traditionally, if we go back 20 years, that would be television, so an ad on TV, or would be radio, right? But obviously now there are many other ways that we can see, or we can learn about a business or a brand or a service. Okay, and so we typically have a trigger. Right, so now we're talking about things like Facebook ads. We're talking about, we listened to a podcast and we heard something mentioned there, or it could have been a referral from a friend. It could have been, one of your mentors mentions a product or a service, right? There's different elements of this. And then what happens is we enter what's called the zero moment of truth, which is essentially a whole ton of research that we do before we actually make the decision to buy. Okay, in the past, right, if we go back about 20 years, the zero moment of truth didn't really exist the way it does now. Okay, if we were to remove that ZMOT bit in the diagram, okay, and we only had stimulus, which moved to first moment of truth, which is actually the shelf, which is actually where we walk into the shop to make a purchase, right? And then the third piece would be the actual experience of the product or service after with the purchase, okay, which is the second moment of truth, right? That's how shopping used to be. That's how purchases and sales used to work, okay? But now, because of the internet, it's introduced this thing called the zero moment of truth, or what Google is calling it that, and that's really all about how much time and energy we spend in research, okay? And on the next slide, you'll see the relevance for you, okay? So according to Google's findings, right, it takes the average customer about 7 hours of interaction across 11 touch points, okay? So when we talk about touch points, it means different, types of communication. So looking at a website could be one touch point, right? Receiving an email could be another touch point. Getting a referral from a friend could be another touch point. Being seen in a newspaper is another touch point. So, right, think about it. So what Google is saying is that typically for the average customer, it takes 7 hours of being exposed to a brand, okay, and 11 touch points, and often the case in 4 different locations. So that can be, if you have a physical premises, that could be one location. Another one could be could be an ad on Facebook. Another location could be an email newsletter. Another location could be, sort of a flyer that's been put out somewhere else, right? So, for the average buyer, that's the amount of interaction needs to happen with a brand before they buy into that brand, okay? So this is why digital marketing now becomes super important, because it allows us to accelerate this process. It allows us to get in front of people when they're asking the questions, okay? So if they're asking about, the specific problem or challenge that your business solves, okay, you want to appear, right? Like your company, your brand, the service that you provide, it needs to be there in that conversation. Otherwise, you're missing out, right? So is this making sense to people? Can I just get a quick check-in in the chat box here, right? And so, like, yeah, a bit down below here, a couple of things they can do. Consumers, they can look at your website, they look at your blog, they're looking at your social media, looking for reviews and recommendations, and they also sometimes want to book a call with you just to understand you, and what you're doing better, and that kind of thing. All right. Now, there are 4 types of media where we can really live online. All right. This is called the PESO model, and it stands for paid, earned, shared, or owned. Okay, and let me give you a quick breakdown on this. Has anyone seen this before? The PESO model? No? Okay, so let's start with paid. Paid media is basically where you pay to get your brand in front of someone else's audience. All right, so if you're paying for a Facebook ad, okay, what you're doing is you're making a payment to place an ad or your content in front of Facebook's audience, right? That's paid media, okay? Then you have earned media, right? Which is where you're not paying to be in front of someone else's audience, but you have developed a relationship where, you found that you're a fit for their audience, and what the types of problems and challenges that you solve are the types of problems and challenges that they're looking to solve for their audiences. Okay, and for whatever reason they've decided to put you in front of their audience. All right, and that could be here. Examples here are maybe influencers, so people who have really a large number of following on, say, Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever it may be. It could be media channels like ABC. It could be Channel 7, whatever it is. So that anytime you're getting interviewed by one of those channels, right, that's earned media. Okay, you've earned the right to be in front of their audience. Okay, now you've also got let's go to shared. Shared media is essentially social media, where it's a way that content can be distributed pretty much cheaply, if not cost effectively. It's all about referrals and word of mouth. Okay, so that's where people are sharing information and knowledge, right? So there's this knowledge transfer happening on those platforms. And then the last one is owned media, which is basically where you have full control. So you control what goes on your website, what goes on your blog. You control the content that you put out. Okay, and that's your own media channel. Think of it that way. Okay, so they're the 4 sort of key areas. And when you're building your marketing strategy, you want to have incorporate these 4 different types of media. Right now, you're going to have to obviously work out how much resource, time, money, and those sort of things you have to allocate to these 4 different types of media, and we'll talk through that as we go on throughout this series of workshops. But certainly, you want to just conceptually understand that that's how you build where you need to be to getting in touch with your different audiences. All right. Okay. So that's step 1. Principle number 2 here is you need to be clear. Okay. So you need to really define who's your audience, the target audience you're trying to reach. Okay. And you might have multiple audiences. Okay. So you might have, for example, what's called a 2-sided marketplace, where you've got your buyers who buy your product or service, or connect with you that way, and then you may have partners who or investors or whoever it may be who distribute, who act, or media channels who act as distribution channels who can reach your audience, right? So you might have multiple audiences to work with, all right? But what I want you to sort of narrow in on, first of all, is who is the buying audience. Okay, who is actually going to pay you money to get your business afloat, right? And then the next thing is, what's the offer? Okay, so for each type of audience, your offer needs to be specific to that audience, right? And then what's your message, all right? Something that's obviously quite popular now is crowdfunding, and you've probably seen a bunch of those around, crowdfunding campaigns. Quick show of hands, or just, do you know what I mean when I'm saying crowdfunding? Yeah, yep, you got it, cool. So the number 1 reason why crowdfunding fails, and I've interviewed a couple of founders of Start Some Good and different crowdfunding platforms, and what they tell me is by far the number one reason why it fails is because the audience and message is not aligned. Okay, and there's an assumption that if we just put our project on a crowdfunding platform, that it's just going to become successful because there's people looking at that platform. That's actually a myth, and the way to go about it is you need to build your audience first. Have your audience already know who you are and develop that relationship, and then you go and launch the campaign on the platform. Okay, and that's where the most successful campaigns perform. All right, and then so what's your message and what do you do with them next? All right. Okay, so we also have, all right, so here's a couple of examples I just wanted to show you. I'm not sure if any of you are using MailChimp, but this is basically, if you assuming you don't know what it is and this you just landed on their homepage, which is what you see on the screen here, what would you think this business does? So quick type in the chat box, what do you think this business does? Stoneware, says Greg. Homewares. Okay, interesting. Helps to choose a product right for you. Okay. Pictures of chimps. Love it. Basically, the answer is they help you send better email, which is what it says on that text there. I'm totally with you guys. The image is just not a great image, and it just froze everyone off. But yes, Janine is right. They do email marketing. They actually provide the platform, the tool that helps you do the email marketing. Right. But that's why message is important. Right. Okay, this is Hub Australia. So this is a company I worked for previously, and right there, front and center almost. We made it a mission to make sure that when people land here, they get a bit of an idea of what it is. So there's pictures of the space. There's a tagline that says it's workspaces that love people. It's a growing community for small businesses, right? So yes, there are things in here that could be tweaked and could be better, but I think sort of the key thing here is we want to be clear on what the message is. Yeah, absolutely, Greg. Yeah, this one's a lot more clearer than the last one, right? So just different examples on clarity online. Great. I'm glad that you guys picking up on that stuff. So number 3 here is you want to be memorable, right? And this is coming to really how can you be relevant, right? So to the audience you're trying to reach, what is the value that you're and this, we talk a lot about, marketers will always talk about value and salespeople will talk about value, but really it's what are you doing to help your specific audience align with a specific mission that they have. How are you helping them move forward with specific goals that they have, or targets they're trying to reach, and how can you be, I guess, better at doing that than others in your space. Okay, because there is competition, there's also collaboration, which is great, but at the same time you want to make sure that you are engaging, you are showing a bit of your personality or a lot of your personality, because I'm getting the sense here that you guys are quite fun to work with and I love that. And you also wanted to be targeted. I mentioned that earlier. One message for one audience. All right. When you try to be too general to everybody, then nobody knows that you're for them. Okay, so you really want to get real specific, and then you want to be, I talked about helpful already. All right, so that's number 3. Here's an example. Urbanista they're a cafe restaurant in Surrey Hills. Actually, they're in the Darlinghurst area in Sydney, and this was during Mardi Gras weekend. So they put obviously they do coffee is one of the things they do, and they did this great Instagram post just to say, look, we're celebrating with our friends, and they use I don't know how they did the image, but they use the Mardi Gras colors on there, and that works for the audience because they're in the Darlinghurst that area. Mardi Gras is happening in that area, and they're trying to they want to sort of connect and also say that we support that, right? So bit of a strategic social media play by this company. Here's one example of a company that was in the US that just did something really terrible, and I don't want you guys doing this, which is, if I'm not sure, is anyone familiar with the Why I Stayed campaign and the hashtag campaign that happened? This has gone back a few years now, but that was, okay, so yeah, so essentially they put out they tried to leverage the hashtag that was rising in popularity. It was trending at the time, and then they used it to try and say, because they used this tagline, "You had pizza." So they're trying to place their product inside a hashtag, which was all about a social, there was a social impact sort of movement, if you will, and then they had to retract the statement and say, look, they didn't know what that hashtag was about. Yeah, fair enough. But I think the Why I Stayed the Why I Stayed campaign was all about domestic abuse. All right, so that was a whole underlying theme of the hashtag and the movement. And here's a pizza place trying to use it to sell pizza. Can you see the disconnect? All right. So yeah, you got to be careful about how you're messaging, right, and what you're doing online. Okay. Number 4 is all about just being integrated, and what that means really is that you want to focus on having multiple ways to reach out and communicate with your audiences. All right, so there's a diagram up in the top right there that gives you an example of this. So you might have print ads, you might have your website, you got business cards, you might have someone a telephone, like a team that makes phone calls out, teleseminars or whatever. You might have videos, direct mail, right? You might even do local markets, right? There's different ways you can do that. But across that, where people really fall flat is the consistency across those channels is where it really sort of doesn't work. So if you're going to do this, you want to make sure that you have a consistent brand. Okay, so you got to get clear. Quick note for you to write down right now is, come up with a brand strategy. If you don't already have that, you want to have a brand strategy, okay? And you want to have what we call a brand style guide. And typically you work with a graphic designer or someone, a brand strategist who has, who can take you through a process to help you really get clear on the voice, the tone, the colors, it's not just a logo, it's actually more than that, right? So branding is actually, what is it about you that's unique? What is it that resonates with the audiences that you're trying to reach, okay? And what's the consistent message that you're going to be putting out for the next, months, if not years, right? So that's really what it's all about, okay? And one note down the bottom there is that mobile is, by far one of the fastest growth channels right now. So if you're not on mobile, you're not putting your focus on mobile as a marketing channel for yourselves, whether it's mobile websites or mobile ads, or social media through mobile, that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind as you're developing your strategy. Okay, number 5, very important, is you want to be measurable. And seeing as you guys are going, been working with Investible, I'm sure this has come up many times, right? You want to make sure that you're clear on your business objectives. You need to be clear on what is your return on investment for any marketing that you do. Okay, so if you're going to put, labor hours, if you're going to put money into budgets into marketing, if you're going to put energy into it, right? How do you measure that success, right? How do you know it's working, and have some key milestones around that? So if you're checking in monthly, and you say, look, we've tried this for 3 months and it's not this, we haven't come even close to the goals we put forward, then maybe we need to be changing strategies or tactics, right? Or we need to reassess our goals, right? Whatever it is, you do want to have metrics around what you're doing, okay? And the tools that we will look into will help you do that. Okay, but before we go there, you need to sort of pen and paper, just sit down, or whiteboard, start to get ideas around, okay, what are some metrics we want around our marketing, okay? And then the last one here, step 6, or principle number 6, test. And being that you are in startup phase and you're doing a lot of work around pivoting and understanding product market fit and all those cool things, you want to make sure that you're running testing campaigns, in marketing. So something that I'm doing with my clients is we do 90-day cycles, like call it a 90-day campaign, if you will. And we start with what is the goal of the campaign. Sometimes we do 6-week campaigns if we can make them short and quick. But typically we have a sort of a 90-day window, and we say, well, what are we trying to achieve within those 90 days, and how many tests are we going to run in within that space, okay? And what's the budget, and how are we going to measure performance, right? So we're sort of constantly iterating on that. All right, so quick recap on all of this. We have we want to be found, you want to be clear, memorable, be integrated, be measurable, and you want to be testing. Cool. Everyone got those? And I will be sending this recording and the slides to you afterwards as well. So don't feel like you have to frantically write down too much. I just want you to, anything that sort of hits you and sort of goes, aha moments, that's what you need to be writing down. Thanks, team. Okay, so what's been most valuable, quick check-in, most valuable to you so far? So just let me know of what we've covered already. Just one thing that's grabbed you or got you thinking. And I'm just going to get some water. So whilst you guys are typing that stuff in, yeah, so if you're wondering who this Cindy is that's on the line right now, she's actually she's my business partner, co-founder, and also she's a head of operations for our team. So she's making sure that everything works whilst I do the talking. Okay, so. Yep, I'll go back and recap slide. Janine, there you go. Greg, so one message, be clear on the message and what you're trying to achieve. Beautiful. We've got the Josie's got the peso model, love it. And you got 2 new models coming from the Investible team. Wonderful. Okay. Let's go on. True or false? Having an inactive blog is better than having no blog at all. True or false, team? Throw that in the chat box. What do you reckon? Got a false here, false, couple of falses, and then Greg's got a hell no. I don't know all about that. Okay, so the answer is false. Okay, so you got it right, team. So if you're going to have an inactive blog, you're better off just taking it off, because that's going to hurt your brand. It's going to hurt, if people are comparing you to somebody else, all right, and they're more active and more consistent, then there's, whether it's true or not, there's an assumption that's made that that either that you're not performing as well. Okay, so that's important. All right, so let's talk about the component of digital marketing. Can I just get a quick check-in on time? Where are we at? Okay, cool. All right, so we've got some good time gone through. All right, so here we are. Here are I don't even know how to blog. That's all right. We'll help you work through that in our content session. That's the thing we're going to talk about in the next session. All right, so 360-degree marketing. This is the 8 different elements to this. Feel free to take a quick screen capture or whatever you want to do. But I'm going to go deeper into the 4 on the left-hand side: SEO, website, content, and social. And as you've seen, we will have specific sort of 1-hour sessions on each of these, where I'll help you really get that together and help you understand sort of the inner workings of how to make those things work. On the right hand side, let me just give you a quick rundown of what they are. So PPC stands for pay per click. Okay, so pay per click, it's really paid advertising. All right, it's paid media, which I showed you earlier. All right, so that's Facebook ads, it's Google AdWords, it's LinkedIn ads, it's maybe it's PR if you're hiring a PR agency to do public relations for you. Okay, but typically we're talking about paid ads. All right, customer communications in the green there. That's more around developing your sort of. There's two streams to that. One is your onboarding. What we call an onboarding sequence, which is when someone signs up with you and comes into, put some faith into working with your organization or your business, that you have, a path predefined that takes them down a journey of communications. Okay, so one of the things that we work on with our clients is actually mapping that out. All right, so for example, I've just spent a couple of hours this week workshopping with a bookkeeping service. What are the best communications that they can be putting out once someone signs up, to have them do the bookkeeping for them. Okay, and so it's something like sending a welcome email. What should be in that welcome email? Sending an education series, which is a bunch of automated emails that educate the clients on what to expect, right? And also on how they can ask questions or provide feedback. All right, so it's really training your client or customer or your partners on how to engage with you. That's really what that is, right? And also at the end of that, there's a feedback loop as well, which is all about getting reviews and feedback and testimonials, okay? And having a system that does that for you, okay? And then the third area, we'll move on to outbound email, okay, which is the aqua-ish color box. And that's really all about, having emails, outreach emails that go outward. So it's basically you. Is that like a newsletter? Yeah, the newsletter can be used. Yeah, it is like a newsletter, correct? And that's more of a specific newsletter with a specific purpose, which is around developing your customer communications. Okay, so it's helping them build better relationship with you, and this is once they've already bought you. So it's not like you're trying to sell them anything. It's more like you're now part of our family. Let's give you all the rules of what it's like to be part of our family. Okay, so then the outbound email is more of your where you can actually, for example, you could go to an organization and whether you pay them or you partner with them, and they might have 5,000 of your ideal clients in their database, and you're now trying to get your brand in front of that audience. Okay, so this is where you can then say to them, look, we'll pay you to place some content. So not necessarily an ad, but it could be like a sponsored content where they can do that for you through their email list. It could also mean that you have an outbound email process where you're actually sending it's almost like the cold calls that, there's cold calling. You can pick up the phone and try and cold call people, but you can also do cold emailing as a strategy, right? Which has pros and cons, okay? It depends on your brand and again, and where you want your positioning and where you want to be seen, right? So if that activity is going to hurt your brand, you probably want to avoid that activity. So Greg's talking about having some artists write material. Yeah, love that. So if that's who you're serving, Greg, and that's a way that if they've got their own audiences, that's a nice collaborative partnership that you can work on. Definitely a great idea. Getting guest writers to write content for your website or for your newsletter or even for your social channels. That's a nice way again to do it, as well. Now, inbound lead nurturing, that last piece in the gray area here, this is really so flipping from I'm going out there and I'm pushing a message outward, which is outbound. Now I'm looking at pulling and attracting, which is inbound, and I'm going to do that through teaching. So I'm going to, put out content, whether it's podcast, video, audio, blog posts, guest blog posts, whatever, which is all about teaching and raising awareness, and that then in turn attracts people to me, okay, or to you, right? That's inbound, okay? So the energy is different, obviously, between outbound and inbound, and a lot of successful companies actually have both working together, right? But again, these are just sort of overview for you, so you can understand what they are. Now let's go into the four on the left, and I've got slides for these, which I'll run through with you. Okay, so let's move into the SEO world. So true or false, Google recently changed the way search engine results page displays. True or false? Where's my water? We've got a lot of truths and we've got one don't know. Greg is saying that they constantly change it. Okay, the answer is true. Google did change recently. We're going back 6 months ago now about that, and they've started to do some interesting things. So, well, it's not on this slide or this screenshot, but what you're seeing on the right-hand side is your typical search display. This is on mobile device, and also on desktop. But now what you're seeing is just, so where you see that map on the right-hand side, what Google are doing now is they're actually above that map. They're placing sponsored or paid advertising, right? So you see on the bottom where you've got like, Sydney's 11 best pizza restaurants from Time Out, and then you've got Concrete Playground down below. So they're what we call organic results, right? So those blogs, those websites are not paying to be there. Okay, they've just done really well with SEO to come up on that first page, right? But what Google's doing now is they're actually putting 4 search results above the map. Okay, and that's their way to try and really monetize, I guess, the platform and grow their business. But the statistics still reveal that most people, we're talking about high, I think something like 90+% of users will skip the paid ads at the top and go to the bottom and click through the organic results. Right, so it's still important for you to understand how you get onto that first page, and there's something like 95% or 98% of people will never click past the first page. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind as well. So SEO really is, for those of you who are not aware of it, it's really a process of affecting, the visibility of your website showing up in organic search results. All right, now there's a lot of techie words in there. It just means that you show up on the first page of Google in that first 5 or 6 results in that list down below. Okay. Also, you can also see in the map, or in the picture there, that there's 3 pizza places that showed up when I did a search for best pizza in Surrey Hills. Okay, you can also see they all have pictures. They all have these star ratings. Can you see that on the screen? And they have next to the star rating. So Vacanza, for example, has 4.5 star rating, and then they've got in brackets 32. That's a number of reviews that have been made on Google by their customers. Okay, so and you'll see that each of these businesses have around 30 plus reviews, and that's one of the reasons why they're ranking there in that top 3 box when you search in Google, okay? Because they've done a lot of work to get their customers to leave reviews about their business on Google reviews. All right, so so that question around how do you manage being on the first page, that's one of the answers right there, is that you put some effort into getting reviews of your product, service, your organization, whatever you're doing, and you make that part of your client experience, or the experience people go through is if they've worked with you, is that they then, you will go and ask them, hey, if you liked what we've done or how we work, can you go and leave us a review for us? And you build that into your client journey, if you will. All right. But there are other different things that we're going to cover in much more depth in the SEO workshop. So I won't go into all that here. But definitely, that's something you want to keep an eye on. All right. So the second thing here is website. Big question that comes up, I see it from time to time, is the website even still relevant in 2017, going into 2018? Do we need one? Why do we need one? And really, I've still not found a strong argument to say no. I feel that, from all the work I've been doing with our clients and whatnot, to me, the clear answer is still yes. And the reason is because if we go back to those 4 types of media, one of those medias is owned media. Do you remember that? Do you remember we talked about you need to own your own media? Okay, now you can spend a lot of time building your audience on Facebook or on Instagram or on whatever it may be. But the problem is, if Facebook or Instagram or whatever channel decides tomorrow that they're going to change the way it works, okay, then all of a sudden that audience, for whatever reason, they won't be able to see what you're doing anymore, right? And you lose them overnight. And it's happened before. It happened earlier this year with Facebook or with Instagram. Instagram went from being completely organic with an algorithm that some code that helped you be found, to being paid, because obviously Facebook bought them out, and then they introduced the paid Instagram ads platform, which is really Facebook's ad platform, and now they're encouraging more of their users to pay to get the same reach that they were getting before for free. All right. This happened to Facebook for about 5 years ago. It happens to Instagram. LinkedIn is doing it. They're all doing it. Okay. So what we want to do, our objective is to, yes, do social media, yes, have SEO, yes, do advertising, yes, do events and all these different things that you can see on the screen here. But all those things are what we call traffic sources, and we want to drive all of the attention from those different places to your website. Does that make sense, team? Okay, so think of the website as your house, and then you build your house, and the website is also where the transactions happen, right? So if someone's going to buy something from you, it's going to happen on your website. If they're going to connect, and reach out to you to, for whether it's to make a phone, to get on a call with you, or to ask you inquiries, you can track all of that if it's sitting on your website. Once it starts sitting elsewhere, okay, it gets more difficult for you to track that stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So really, this is what we call the hub and the spoke concept, right? Whereas the website is the hub, and the rest of it, all those other channels, are what we call the spokes, and they all point back to the website. Okay. And if you want to get people onto your mailing list, right, it's going to happen on your website. Okay. So here's a quick, I guess, overview of how it's sort of the typical journey that your target audience goes through online, from being online to interacting with you, and then becoming whether it's a buyer or a partner or an investor. This is what it looks like. Okay, so we move from the left-hand side, which is you've got your target audience, so you define who they are and you get clear around this is who we need to be reaching out to and working with. Okay, they're out there, and what they're doing is they're going to go to one of these marketing channels. So in the second column there, you can see they're going to do a Google search. They're going to they might be receiving newsletters that they subscribe to. They might be on any of the social media channels like LinkedIn or Instagram, Twitter. All right. And they also might be down the bottom there reading some of these media publications like BBC, Forbes, Huffington Post, whatever in your specific industry, there would be associations and media publications that are for your industry. and your audiences will be reading those things. Okay, so they're all channels for you, right, and for them. Okay, so you would come up in one of those channels or in all of those channels, and from there they would then be directed to your website. They come to your website, they're going to find out more about you, they're going to learn all about your story, learn about a bit more about your clients and the people you serve and all that really juicy stuff, and then they're going to move to transaction, which is going to be, you can see the shaking of the hands icon there, which is building trust. And once you've got trust, then they move to what we call the store, and that's where and that could be, if you've got a physical shop, they're moving from your website to your physical location, or it could be online transaction, which is where they make purchases online. Okay, so that's what we call a funnel. All right, someone asked about funnels earlier, but this is just a typical funnel that we develop, and that's sort of the basic structure that you're going to have set up online for your business. Okay. If you have any questions on that, feel free to chuck it in the chat box. Let's have a quick chat about content. Okay, and yep. So Greg had a comment there about you can get them to go straight from social media to the store as well. Yes, you can. There is things like Shopify, and there are different tools where if you have a product-based business that people can buy on the social channels, so they don't actually have to go to the website, right? But at some point you want to try and move them, even if they've purchased through that section, you do want to at some point redirect them back to your website, because there's something that we can do, and we'll talk about this in the Facebook module, is what we call retargeting, which means that people who come to your website, we can actually track who they are, right? Not necessarily name and numbers and that sort of thing, but certainly we have the technology to track that, and then we can actually send messages to them once they've hit your website. Okay, and we can use technology to do that. So I'll talk about content. Content, anything on the left here is really content: blog posts, articles, white papers, reports that you do or create. You're going to do videos, social media posts, e-newsletter. That's all content, and it's all about you putting out your message and you producing really great stuff that's valuable, that's educational, that's helpful to your audience, right? And then on the right here is what we sort of call a content marketing cycle. We'll deep dive into this when we do the content module. But it all really starts with that pink box up the top. It's about listening to your buyers, your audience, okay, and then deciding on well, what are the themes and the topics that we're going to produce content about, which addresses the concerns, questions, and the things that are coming up from your audience. We then create content around that. We promote that content. We then measure and evaluate how that's performing, and then we repurpose, which is actually you might create a video, right? 3-minute video that you throw into YouTube or onto Facebook, and then you might turn that into a bunch of blog posts, or you might take the audio out and turn that into a podcast. So there are different ways you can use that content. That's called repurposing. Okay. So that's also anything that goes on your website, your About Us page, your the words and the images that go onto the website. That's all content, right? And that needs to be produced. Okay. So the fourth sort of area here is social media, right? And just a couple of stats I wanted to show you guys from. This is from January this year, but what we're seeing is the rise and the continual rise on the number of active social media users. We're looking about this was across one platform. They did a survey to understand total number of active social media users, was around 305.9 million. That's quite small. I think I need to get clear on what this is. Monthly active users. Okay, that makes more sense. But there is I think the key stat for me here, or really wanted to show to you, is the number of social users accessing by mobile. Okay, so around 270 million. I think this is specific to the US. I need to check this. And then we've got total percentage of users as the size of population that's on active and mobile. at 42% and climbing. Okay, this is in January. These numbers have changed, but I wanted to give you just a quick idea of that. All right, and the reason why we're doing a workshop on Facebook specifically is because Facebook is by far the leader in the social media landscape, right? They hit 2 billion users in around December last year, and that's increasing. Then we have different platforms, within this. The interesting thing here, if you look at Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, those four platforms are actually owned and run by Facebook. So, that's something that's happening, and we're seeing more merging of platforms, right, or buying out of platforms, right? So that's actually happening. Twitter bought who was the competitors to Snapchat a while back? Can't remember the name now, but if you're looking at China, Qzone, WeChat, Weibo, that's all the China sort of market. And YouTube's not in here, but YouTube is actually very high as well in terms of active users. Okay, but social media is one part of the equation, and you definitely need to be thinking about. The question I'd be asking from your perspective is, what social media channels are our audiences actually using? Okay, because you can get very easily lost in all the platforms, and you can stretch yourself very thinly across them. So my the way I would sort of focus your attention would be to say, okay, I'm just going to really focus on the number one platform or the top 2 platforms over the next 12 months, and that's where my attention and energy is going to be, and do that really well. Okay, because if you're doing that really well, you have more than what you'll need in terms of acquisition and growth. You don't actually, and then once you've got that growth, you can then go and play with the other platforms. But, key strategy here is just to stay focused. All right. Okay, so just around that last chunk here, around the 4 different, or the 8 different parts of the pie, what was sort of valuable for you? Just one key lesson or one key learning you got out of that. Please let me know in the chat. To know your audience. Yeah, absolutely. You can get into too many channels, and it gets very difficult to work out what's working when you're in too many channels at once. So you really want to clean that up. All right. Pick one channel, focus on that, and do that really well. Great. And outbound emails, yes. So I think around that piece, there's a whole myth around inbound is the new thing, and that's the best way to do it. But let me tell you, inbound is a long strategy. It takes time to evolve. And if you're putting out consistent content, over the next, 6 months, it may take another 6 months or 12 months for that to work for you. All right, so I want to put some reality to this. And the way you speed that up is you amplify through paid social. You amplify through different channels. And the outbound is important because, you can do, like I've seen this happen with one of my clients where they spent so much time on trying to get like podcast interviews and guest post opportunities and PR and stuff like that, where, if they had put that time, energy, and money in just doing targeted outreach to specific organizations who could be their partners, right? Or, getting in front of the right clients and having sales conversations, that would drive their acquisition up a lot more faster. So you do need to keep that in mind, okay? Customer comms is interesting, great, and train a company to communicate with you. Yes, we're always training, our clients, our partners, our mentors. We're training them on how to interact with us, all right? So that's important to understand. So it's about you and the way you communicate and understanding how they communicate and finding the bridge between the two, right? So there's a whole real thing around communication we can do around that, and maybe that's for another time. But certainly, like, marketing is really all about just matching audience to message and developing that communication practice. Okay, outsource where I can't. Love that, Janine. Yes, we didn't talk too much about outsourcing here, but for you as the founder or the founding team, and you've got a lot of challenges to work on, yourself and building, relationships and that kind of stuff. I would be, understand the model and then start looking at where you can outsource. Okay, because you can sort of get the sense here. I'm only talking about the 4 key elements for a startup. Imagine trying to do all 8 at once. You're going to need to outsource, and this is what a lot of larger companies are doing, and even growth startups are doing, is they're outsourcing different elements of that marketing mix. All right, let's talk about trends. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes, if I'm right. So a couple of things I want to cover with you here. Just a quick snapshot. The top 3 digital related priorities right now would be content marketing, social media engagement, and what's called targeting and personalization. And that's really all about, okay, let's break them down. Content marketing we talked about. That's producing high quality, high value content and putting that and promoting it, right? So there's 2 elements. It's the production and then the promotion, right? So a lot of focus and attention there. It's about teaching what you know. It's about, raising awareness. It's about sharing, stories, really great storytelling element to that. If there's one key skill set that I implore you all to learn, and I think you already have it, it's actually the storytelling side about your journey, why you're doing what you're doing, who are the people you help, share their stories, right? And that's great, powerful, real content, and that's what people resonate with, right? Don't forget the why. This is exactly what I've just said. Okay, so and that should be the driving, underlying message to all of this. Okay, then you've got social media engagement. Okay, now social media engagement it's a 2-way thing. Engagement is 2 ways. It's not just about you talking out to an audience. It's them talking and you having conversations with them. So you need to allocate time and energy, or a team, to work on that side of things. Okay, and that's developing. These are when we talk about trends, the reason why these things are trending right now is because these things, these different priorities are what's working better for a lot of businesses out there. Okay, and then the last one is around, sort of third one here, is targeting and personalization. That's all about using people's names. All right, this might sound very simplistic, but it's really like people are tired of. You might have this experience of walking into, taking a loan getting a mortgage at the bank and being another number, right? You want to be able to have a conversation with a bank manager who knows you, knows your family, knows you well, and can help you and really relates to your situation. Who's going to give you some leeway when you've got some struggles and you can't pay the mortgage, whatever it may be. Like, that's personalization, right? And that's really understanding, the challenges, the questions that are coming up, with your audiences. A key practice around that is surveying. So building surveying into what you do. It is staying human. Thank you for that. And that's really what it's all about. And I've said it multiple times now on this call or this session. It's about being specific. So targeting is about being specific and saying we serve these people and we don't serve these people, right? So you have to make a distinction, and you're gonna have to make a call on that, right? I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive and a bit hard, because at the beginning you kind of want everybody, but really effective marketing and branding is very focused. Okay, which is number 4 anyway, which is about brand building. And number 5 here is about video content. So video is definitely on the rise, and right now Facebook is making a push for Facebook Live. If you're on there, you probably know that already. But that's where big opportunity is to get traction and to get engagement, right? So they're sort of the 3, sort of 5. So and then you can see numbers. I want to flag number 6, which is customer journey management. And that's what I talked about earlier. It's about also, if you do a great job of managing your customer journey and letting them know what the journey is, right, then that's going to help you with retention, right, which is actually keeping those clients longer, keeping them around longer, and they will become your ambassadors because they love you, love what you're doing, and if you're treating them right, then they become your salespeople. They become your marketing channel. Okay, so that's a key part of what we call growth hacking is actually working out along the way, how can we improve the customer experience, okay? All right, so let's, oh, this is a terrible slide. The visuals aren't, oh, you know what I want to do? I'm gonna take you to another screen. But I think I've sort of covered this already, but there are a couple of social media trends. I'm gonna step out of this screen. Let me just share. Give me one sec, guys. I'm gonna share this. Okay, can you see my screen? You should see Pinterest right now. Everyone got Pinterest on there? Can you, I can't see the. Okay, so let's run through quickly. So trends to watch out for in social media right now. We talked about number of 2.3 billion active users in 2016 on social media, 1.9 billion active users on mobile. That's increasing, but here's what's important. Okay, number one, live streaming video. Okay, talked about Facebook Live. That's happening, and you want to make sure. I gotta stop clicking on it because it keeps popping out. Okay, so you know, Twitter bought Periscope. That's what I meant earlier. We've got Instagram. Introduced Instagram stories to compete with Snapchat, right? Live streaming is where it's at right now. Chatbots. Anyone in the world of AI or artificial intelligence? Any of you guys doing anything with AI in your startup? If you're not, this is something that's all Janine, is it? Awesome. So this is all about you know, how do we integrate and utilize? It's still new to the sort of the general public, but it's definitely a great opportunity for you for engagement. What we're seeing is when you incorporate chatbots as part of your marketing or your customer journey, the engagement levels are off the roof right now, right? So email marketing, typically you're doing well if you're getting about, you know, 10% engagement or even 5% engagement, depending on your industry in your email marketing. In chatbots, it's floating around 85% plus in terms of how much people are engaging. Okay, so that's happening right now, but give it 12 months, we'll be at saturation. So, you know, you want to look at that now. The question here was around, is it a much cheaper application? Right now it is, because it's still new. To be able to use it, you know, I would say it's still affordable. It's not super expensive to get in now, right? But if we fast forward 12 months, Janine, I'm going to say it's going to be real hard because you're not going to stand out because everyone's doing it. Okay, and the wow factor is gone. Okay, so that's chatbots. There's also expiring social content. If anyone uses Snapchat, you'd understand what this is. Basically, content that is created, it gets published, and then it disappears within 24 hours. Okay, and so this is, you know, more around, you know, Instagram stories started that way as well because they essentially just ripped off what Snapchat's doing, and then, you know. But I think this is fading out. I actually feel that the demand for expiring content is going to shift because people want to be able to keep that content online so they can repurpose it, right? But we'll see where it's at. It's still hot right now. I mean, to say if you've got, you know, can't remember what the stats are for Snapchat, but there's still many users on that platform, so it's still a trend worth looking at. I mentioned number 4 here, which is the merging of social media platforms. Okay, so Microsoft bought LinkedIn. If you didn't know that happened, that happened quite recently. Okay, and, you know, Facebook bought WhatsApp and Instagram, and Oculus Rift as well. Twitter bought Periscope. Right? Does Facebook Live go across Insta now that they linked? Not yet. So you still need to across Instagram. So you still need to do Instagram stories as a separate activity. It's not a direct feed into Instagram. Okay, so that's not quite there just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. All right, number 5. Okay, this is important for you guys. Is it's harder to acquire through organic social traffic, right? Gone are the days where you can just consistently push stuff out to social media and build great traffic to your website. That's no longer the case. As I mentioned earlier, all these platforms are pushing paid social right now. So they're saying if you want to get that reach, you're going to have to pay us some money to make that happen. Okay, but where the opportunity is in that video streaming. Okay, so right now you don't have to pay to do video streaming, and you'll get some good reach from that. LinkedIn just are in the process of rolling out their LinkedIn Live version of Facebook Live. So if you weren't aware of that, that's happening at the moment. So if if your target audience are sort of more the professionals, corporates, large organizations, B2B, you definitely want to be looking at LinkedIn video right now. Okay. Number 6 is virtual reality and augmented reality. I'm sure you guys might have come across this along the way, but these are technologies which are still early. They're not market, full market at the moment. But Pokemon Go was a great example of AR going public and creating a bit of a buzz. But I think companies are still working out how to effectively use it. And the rate of adoption and the cost of getting it is still quite high for a lot of people. Okay. We talked about personalized content already. And then now the last one I do want to point out to you is this idea of the increased usage of social influencers. All right. So you're all aware of, are you guys familiar with the Instagram influencers and people who are, high profile, a lot of followers? We had YouTube celebrities come out, in the last, 5, 6, 7 years. Now it's happening on Instagram. It's happening, to a lesser degree on LinkedIn. Facebook has it, but these are people who are just creating tremendous audiences. And one way to really work with them is you essentially go to them, you find out there's a match in audience, and then you would say, look, how much would it cost to put some of our content out in front of your audience, right? And this is for some businesses, not all, but for some businesses, this is a much better investment, right? To say pay an influencer, $1,000 or $2,000 to do, a social influence campaign versus putting $2,000 into Facebook ads, right? The return is going to be better. Okay, so this is something that is happening. You want to become one. You should all look at wanting to become one at some stage for the right reasons, not because of your ego, but because it's actually because of your message and impact you're trying to create. Okay, love it. Okay, so let's. I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I'm going to flip back to the slide deck. Let me go back here. And share. Okay, what's going on? Well, you're going to excuse my gazillion things on my wallpaper. Okay, so we talked about 8 different trends here. We're wrapping up now. What's one trend that you really that you could leverage for what you're doing, right? So quickly in the chat box there, let me know of those 8 different trends, or even the ones we talked about. Janine can leverage influencing, great. Content marketing, love it. I'm going to stories, content marketing, beautiful. Okay, wonderful. All right, so quick recap. We talked about what is digital marketing. We talked about the 6 key principles of digital. We then sort of went into the 4 core elements specifically for startups. And then we looked at the trends for 2018 or 2017, 2018. All right. What's next? Okay, so we are going to move to the 4th of October. You'll get a link for the Content Marketing Essentials workshop. So we'll run through that session with you. I'm going to have a worksheet ready, prepared for you guys. So you're going to be working through it as we go through that session. So we're going to make it very tailored and specific to your business and how you can leverage it. And that will become your, to some degree, your content marketing plan or your strategy that you're going to use. All right. We'll do the same for SEO on the 18th of October, and then on the 26th of October, we'll do Facebook for beginners. Okay. So last question, what was most valuable today for you? And domains. Yeah, we'll look at domains. Greg, everything was valuable. Thank you, appreciate that. Just want to make sure that I'm giving you relevant stuff that you can, that's helpful for you. You think the whole process of marketing is cool? Awesome. Definitely, yeah. Lot to learn there. Pizza. I wish I could throw pizzas at you right now. That technology is not mature yet. But if you can find create a startup that can do that, I'm in. Drones. Yeah. Well, yes, that's right. Drone. Hey, I love it. I love it. There's actually a guy that I did a case study of who's actually built the largest drone training online course on the planet, and he's got about 300 students that are learning how to fly drones from him online, and that's like a multi-million-dollar business. So that's really interesting where that's going. Okay, so all right, so we're going to leave it to, I guess, maybe if it's okay with you guys, quick 5-minute Q&A. If there are any sort of questions that you want to throw at me, we'll give you, we'll do that for 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap up. Unless you guys got meetings to go to right now. If you need to drop off, that's fine. But I'm happy to stick around for another five, and then I'll say thank you for joining, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next session. I would totally be down for airborne splat art. And there's my email address as well. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot through questions on there. Or does the team have a Facebook group or something like that? Because if that's better for you guys, you can throw questions on there. I'm happy to jump in and sort of answer questions there if that's easier. Otherwise, reach me by email. Looks like you're processing the content. I'm going to send you the slides. Okay, do I need an IP before I launch a? Do I need IP before I launch a website? From Janine. Are we talking about a domain, or are you talking about a? Just to clarify, yes, you will need a domain name. You'll need it to register a domain first, and then would be connected to. Then you also need hosting. So you need two things: a domain name, and you're going to need hosting, and then that's how we get your website up. Okay, but that's a good question. Yep. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it then. So thank you so much for your time and engagement today. That's amazing. And I will flick the slides to you. And then you guys can pass it around. All right. I'm going to hit record. Thank you. And we'll see you guys next time.